What's up, guys? Tambo here with your weekly core report. It's another monster week for Run Pure Sports members, including another Millie Maker shipper. Let's get to the winners. The World Cup continued to print for our members. Rubio and Jaime have been producing winning content throughout the event, and last week was no different. IPT 007 hit for 6K. K. Reed won 7K. Bobby Hare hit for 10K, while Rubio himself shipped another 16K. We pride ourselves in offering just about every sport for one low price. We'll put our content for all sports up against any competitor when it comes to producing winners. Steve Boynton has been on fire in college basketball, helping our members ship, as well as himself hitting for 2K. Jay Gingery 912 joined him, winning 3K. In the MMA streets, Hoop shipped for 30K using Titletown's playbook. And it's not just on DraftKings where we produce the winners. For prize picks this week, Du Bois hit for $500 and C. McDonald 1016 won $2,500 using our NBA prize picks content. Speaking of NBA, Jesse Samek hit for 6K while Mangone nailed his core and shipped for 8K. This has been a successful NFL season for Run Pure Sports, making people a ton of money. This week, we produced our second Millie Maker winner of the year. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already to access all our free NFL content. Our members' ROI has been off the charts this season. In week 13, You Should Be turned $80 into 8K. Motor City 2 DFW turned $50 into 5K. King of the North hit for 15K, and I finished in 6th place in the King of the Beach contest, winning 40K. But the biggest winner by far was RPS member Alicia Hunt, who turned $240 into over $1 million.
So typically what I do is I'll go over, the core plays, look at BigT stuff a lot. And what I did was I took bits and pieces of what I liked, and then I threw in some of the stuff that I like.
Congrats again to all our members. If you want to be featured in the core report, drop your winning lineup in the Members Never Win channel in our premium Discord. If you're not a member, join now. You won't find a better value, all sports included, for one low price. While you're watching, hit that like button now. Remember, if you're not winning with us, you're watching us win. Till next time, let's keep running pure.
You know what time it is. It's time for the Monday Print Factory at Run Pure Sports. Before we even get started, before we do anything else, first and foremost, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're going to pick a number here. We got a special guest who's usually not on with us on Monday. He's going to help us pick that number, and you're going to help us get to it. Why are you hitting the like button? Come on. I mean, listen to this content. 2 Millionaire Maker winners yesterday from the Run Pure Sports community. The big contest, the main $20 contest, boom, Run Pure Sports shipper. The 4444 Millionaire Maker contest, boom, a Run Pure Sports shipper. Big T is out. He's making his way back from the FanDuel live final. So I'm going to bring in my guy here first. But even before that, go ahead, hit us up at Twitter and hit up the unofficial cuisine partner of Run Pure Sports Millie Makers at Benihana. At Run Pure Sports, at Benihana. Go ahead, congratulate the guys who won the Millie yesterday. Hoop, you look like you came out of a LL Bean catalog. How are you doing today?
Oh, these comments in the chat said Hoop was at school picture day today. Who said that? That was a great comment. Mike Card, it's an amazing comment. Yeah, this is like the first time in I can't even tell you how long where I actually did my hair and put on something besides sweatpants and a hoodie. And it's actually a great story. So my father-in-law, he's in what they're called like Rotary clubs. It's just a local volunteer club where they plan events for like the city and community and all that sort of thing. And called me. He's like, "Oh, we got our holiday luncheon," and obviously knows I have a flexible schedule. He's like, you want to go?" I was like, he's asked me to do like a million things, and I always say no. I was like, you know what? I'll go today. I said, I'm in. He goes, really? So he's kind of surprised. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. He's like, all right, I'll call. This was last night. So he goes, I'll call you in the morning. just to verify. I said, well, I said it was last night. I said, I'm in. So, I mean, you can call if you want, but I'll be there. Call, say, now I figured out why he called. So he goes, hey, he goes, for this event today, he goes, I have like some sweaters or like a shirt and tie, a Christmas tie, if you're interested. So it was like his roundabout way of like, all I ever see you in is like hoodie and sweatpants, and you need to actually like dress up today. So I got the message. I said, Todd, I said, I appreciate you offering up your clothes. I said, but I actually do have some nice clothes that I can put on. So I will be there. I'll be appropriately dressed. And that's why you got me in the collared shirt and hair gel today.
I'll tell you. So this was a holiday gathering that you were at, and
Yep.
it sounds like he's seen the Twitter pictures of Big T at family events, wanted to avoid that type of scenario. And, in the chat, we've got Spencer Smith. First of all, Spencer Smith, the lineups, if you looked at the Millionaire Maker lineups, the content, we were all over those plays, the 49ers defense, Jerry Jeudy, Miles Sanders mentioned by Tambo on the Off the Chalk show in the morning. And then I'm sure they were mentioned on the Morning Wood after us. And then he also wants to know if Randone dressed you today, which is pretty hurtful. I am pretty sure that he did it himself.
After I heard the stories about Tambo, I was like, man, like C-Dome's got the connection, at the malls and the local stores. So I took a quick flight out to San Diego, and C-Dome got me suited up. I got the nice shirt. I got some gray pants on. I think it's a C-Dome approved outfit, I guess is what I would say.
It's definitely a C-Dome approved outfit. I don't know. We'll get his thoughts on that. We want to bring him in. K Fallick is in chat. Kevin Fallick with a big soccer shipper over the weekend. Kevin wants to play the game, and it's a good game. It's a fun game. I've done it myself. Where is JT Hayes at? So go ahead. If you have a guess in the comments, go ahead and guess where I'm at.
You're lucky. You're lucky that Hoop showed up in with his hair done in the real outfit, because it buried the real lead of the story, the workbench right over your left shoulder. It looks like an antique bench too. You better, if the wife's with you better be careful, because it looks like that thing could potentially break down on you.
Yeah, it's I don't know how sturdy it is, so we'll see. We'll see if it's gonna hold up.
Is Mrs. Hayes with you or no?
She's not here, so there's a lot less to worry about when she's not here. It's just used for sleeping purposes. But go ahead in the chat, guess where I am, and also go ahead, guess where I am, and tweet it at Benihana at Run Pure Sports. Randone, how are you doing on this Monday morning? You were telling us before you came in a little bit of a bad beat last night in the showdown streets. Getting ready to make up for it today. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, feeling great. Happy Monday to everyone. I will say, people love a man in flannels, so Hoop's doing it right, especially going into this holiday season. He's ready. So, I really appreciate him putting confidence in me to be his concierge and to help him get fitted. So he's got the hair slicked back too. So, listen, he's doing it right. I see big things for him in shows in 2023. But no, tonight's slate, it's going to be interesting because we were talking about before the show that they made Ramondre, basically on sale. And so that's going to really just put us in a decision if we just want to just hammer the hell out of him, or, do we try to fade him? It's going to be interesting. But yeah, no, let's we need some good mojo, especially for me and you, JT. We're getting close, and so it's time for us to be one of those people that are shipping the big one, because I'm ready for it.
Yeah, a little bit of pain for me yesterday. Came in 5th in one of the last live final qualifiers, so that was hurtful. Just a little bit away. Redmond 130 is in the chat. He also shared that bad beat with you last night in the showdown streets. Just wasn't your guys' night, but it always sucks when it happens. And always feel free to commiserate in the Run Pure community about what's going on there. Guys, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. 289 watching, 87 likes. That's just not good enough just yet. And go ahead, hit that subscribe button. It'll give you notifications about all of the Run Pure Sports content. And perhaps you could be like Alicia, way too loud. And all of the, I can't believe I'm saying this, all of the members at Run Pure Sports who just win Millie Makers. That's all they do. We'll get into this game. It is an interesting one. And we say this, Randone, probably every couple of weeks here, where it's a game where the pieces line up that you could see a solo shipper on this slate. We've got New England in Arizona. New England 2.5-point favorites on the road, which is interesting because outside of really a couple of games early in the season and the Jets game in New Jersey, who they always play tough, this defense really hasn't traveled well lately. The team hasn't played all that well on the road, although this is an interesting spot for the offense, and we'll get into that here. 44 over and under. It's gone down quite a bit. And you have two offenses here, a little bit difficult to predict. The New England side with Jacoby Myers out. We know that Ramondre is the bell cow, but you've got a lot of passing options. Not real sure where the ball is going to go on the offensive side of the New England game. But here for Arizona, all the pieces healthy now. Not a condensed route tree, nothing more evidenced by that than last week's Greg Dortch performance. Marquise Brown is back. People thinking he's going to be involved. No, it's Greg Dortch. So you have a lot of pieces there. Trey McBride, who people are waiting to break out. Randone, what are you looking at in terms of your overall thought on this game here?
Yeah, I mean, the first one is Ramondre is just, he's priced so bad on DraftKings. I can't even explain it. It's like, you know, for me, he played 98% of the snaps last week. You know, they're not going to give any of these backup guys like Pierre Strong or JJ Taylor. They're not going to give them any run. I mean, this guy is just, he's the bell cow on the offense. And, you know, with no Jacoby Myers, it just makes it hard to even, you know, want to fade him. It's like, well, how do I fade him? I don't really think you can. I think Ramondre, I'm curious to see what the ownership's going to look like in a few hours for captain. But, you know, just on DraftKings alone, I will say, just to kick things off, this guy, I mean, he touched the ball, 16, 18 times last week, and he played like 50 snaps. You know, he's just, the majority of production runs through him. You know, Mac Jones is a guy where he doesn't look good majority of the time. Outside of that Vikings game, you know, he's done nothing all season. He's just a mediocre quarterback, in my opinion. I just don't see the upside. So, you know, but he's also facing a situation tonight where the passing defense is not relatively that strong on the Cardinals side. But then also too, it's like, well, what weapons does he have, right? I mean, you know, we're going to get into the talks of Devontae Parker, which, you know, I don't mind. Kendrick Bourne, Aguilar, Hunter Henry. So it's like you said, there's these pieces where we're so unsure of where the ball's really going to go. And it's more just game dependent and script dependent tonight, that this could be an outright solo shipper. So, you know, it's going to be very interesting when we get into this a little bit deeper now and talk about this game. But just first initial thoughts looking at it, this price of Ramondre, just, you know, you're going to be able to put him in. And if you want to put him in captain and just fire off the other side of all Arizona, or, you know, however you go about it, it's just, it's hard for me to say no to Ramondre tonight. I'm curious what Hoop thinks as far as, you know, if you don't captain Ramondre, it's like, you know, how really do you leverage and utilize him tonight?
Yeah, with this team outside of Ramondre, with no Jacoby Myers, sort of like Russian roulette, which we're seeing with a couple of these teams in the league right now. The Chiefs, another good example of that. Hoop, I'll bring you in here. A 44 total, but it was a similarly low total on Thanksgiving night when the Patriots went on the road in Minnesota, and that game kind of shot out. What are your overall thoughts here on the game? And on Ramondre in particular, looks like, I mean, one projection I'm seeing, total ownership for Ramondre closing in on 100%. So in these situations, you know, do you think there's any leverage whatsoever to even considering a fade of him? And then overall thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so Ramondre is the big talking point here, because really underpriced. I'm assuming the pricing probably came out before they officially ruled out Damian Harris, so they kind of kept him at that moderate price tag of 8.8. I mean, you have a guy right now that has just a very rare role for an NFL team. He's going to get a majority of the carries. He's going to get all the goal line work. He's going to get a ton of passing work. I mean, he's become, I don't know, like a Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you look at the targets, 8, 10, 6, 7, 7, 8, 5. So it's not like a fluke situation. You look at the receptions, 6, 9, 6, 3, 7, 8, 4. Like the floor is just massive because of this passing work. Gets everything. I mean, the backup, we were kind of talking before, I'm assuming, what is it, Kevin freaking Harris? Like, a guy doesn't play, so he's going to be out there for everything. And then you throw in the fact that they're favored on the road here too, which should benefit him as well. And then you throw in one more little benefit to him. Jacoby Myers is ruled out. That's their best offensive piece besides him for pass catching work. So it is just like everything is pointing in his favor. How you play him, I guess, is probably going to be key. He'll be the most popular captain play. He'll be the most, highest owned guy, like overall on the slate. He could be $2,500 more and still probably be like the best play on the slate. If you go to any projection site and just kind of sort by value, he's going to be the top value. And that's usually not the case on Showdown because we have these really cheap guys as well. Like the kickers will always rank as good values. And some of these really, really cheap pieces will be better values when you look at price per dollar than guys like in the 7, 8, 9, 10K range. But just goes to show you how good of a play he is tonight. So that's the one thing that definitely stands out. It is kind of interesting. I do agree that they're favored at home. Kind of reminds me of the favorite on the road here. Kind of reminds me of like the Lions game. The 10-2 Vikings went to Detroit 5-7. Lions were favored, and it proved to be right. I'm gonna kind of trust Vegas on this one and believe that the Patriots should be favored here. But in terms of the other pieces, there's some sketchy plays here without Jacoby Myers in the lineup. We're gonna have 4 or 5 pass catchers for the Patriots to consider tonight. And, that's not a comfortable feeling. A lot of those guys, not a lot. Some of them will end up busting. There's no doubt about it. So I think that's the other interesting piece, these Patriots pass catchers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of ways to get different on this slate. And the Ramondre play, perhaps, at least in my mind, somewhat bolstered by the fact that on both sides of the ball, you've got to make decisions and really guess as to where the work is going to go. So I'll stay with you, Hoop. We've got 135 likes out of 400 watching. I think we'll probably get up to 600 views as people start to take their late lunch breaks on Monday or just simply walk out the door because it's time to play Showdown. Yeah. So let's get to 300 quickly. We get to 300 likes quickly and we won't have to talk about the likes anymore. So that's my favorite part of the show is when we hit the goal, let's get to 300 really quickly. Hoop, I'll stay with you. On this same point, the quarterbacks, a big price disparity here. Kyler is 11.2. Mac Jones is 9,600 on DraftKings. And we know what Belichick does. Now, again, the defense not traveling as well this season outside of the division. But if we're thinking that Belichick is going to try and take away the best weapon on Arizona, who is it? And what do you think of these quarterbacks and the prices, seeing what Mac Jones did on the road in Minnesota? Similar type environment here.
Yeah. So in terms of the quarterbacks, is Kyler Murray a good quarterback? I shit on the guy. I've shit on him for years. I think he's terrible in terms of winning and losing football games. He's awful. But, we're not worried about them winning or losing. We're worried about how many fantasy points is the guy going to put up. And for fantasy, he's very relevant because of the rushing upside. And, 56, 60, 36, 30, 100, 42. He's going to get you some fantasy points on the ground. He's been pretty steady, I'd say. Actually, very, very steady. He hasn't had a fantasy game under 16 fantasy points this year, which 16 is not a massive number, but when you're talking a Showdown slate, that's pretty damn good. You see that all the time. You see quarterbacks sometimes that end up with 13 and they end up on the winner. And more recently, he's been even more productive, 26, 20, 29. So for fantasy for tonight, he's definitely a guy to consider, a very safe, stable option. Mac Jones, I'm just not going to be on him all that much. When I do these daily assist videos, I kind of talk about how to handle guys that I don't love, but I am interested in the flex. I'm just going to put a fair projection in there. And if you are, using optimizers to build lineups, I really think you should be changing things around a little bit. Don't just take what the optimizer, which obviously we're partnered with Sabre, that's the one we prefer. Make some changes in there in terms of the projection. So I'll put a projection that I think is fair for Mac Jones, which I don't know, it'll probably be 15 or 16 fantasy points, somewhere in that range. If he hits my teams at 20%, then I'm going to play 20% Mac Jones. If he hits my teams at 40%, then I'll play 40% Mac Jones. I'm not going to manually adjust how much Mac Jones I get, but for Kyler, I will make sure I get a good chunk because he could be someone that you absolutely need. Honestly, with these running quarterbacks, if they find the end zone on the ground once, you're almost free rolling because they're going to get a decent amount of points passing as well. And then your point about Belichick always taking away the other team's best option. Who is that? Is it DeAndre Hopkins? Probably. Hopkins is an interesting guy to talk about on the slate because he's substantially more expensive than just about everyone on the slate. 11.6 for him. Kyler's 11.2. Then it drops all the way down to 10K for James Conner. I think Hopkins is actually somewhat interesting in that captain spot tonight because I don't think a lot of people are going to want to pay that big boy price tag. He has the type of game that fits the DraftKings scoring perfectly where he can rack up a ton of catches. But I am a little bit worried because it does seem like Kyler is just as interested in throwing the ball to Marquise Brown, who is much, much cheaper. I mean, Marquise Brown is $4,000 cheaper than DeAndre Hopkins. You look at the targets, it's been a pretty similar distribution in terms of where Kyler's going with the ball. But I do think the ownership on Hopkins and the captain will be really, really low. So I am going to, not really low, but too low, I guess. So I'm going to try to get some Hopkins in there. I do think, though, that's probably the weapon that Belichick does try to take away here tonight.
And Kurt Jones is in the chat. He gave you a meow, Hoop, which is, I think it's his maiden call. So I would be a little bit cautious the next time you see Curtain Call. Our own Curtain Call, who's been smashing the soccer streets. Go ahead, runpuresports.com. Sign up and win the millie. Pretty much as simple as that.
Kirk likes to eat ass. So I mean, that would be an interesting. That would be an interesting dynamic.
He does. He does. I wonder if ass is an appetizer or a main course on the menu at Benihana. C-Dome, we'll kick it over to you. Hoop's thoughts on Kyle are very interesting. Think you kind of need to make him a priority here. And then your thoughts on the running back situation here. Obviously, we've talked about Ramondre. Know that he's pretty much someone that you want to almost lock into your lineups in the captain or the flex. Then you've got James Conner at 10K, Keontae Ingram, much less work and volume here at 2,600. And then Kevin Harris, I guess, maybe is the backup for Ramondre at 200.
Yeah, I don't think I could go to the backups just because of even what took place last week. It's like there's no faith in these other guys. You know what, Pierre Strong usually plays on special teams, if I'm not mistaken, and then JJ Taylor, I mean, I don't even think he touched the ball, especially last game, and he garnered some ownership last week. Is that to say something changes tonight? I don't know, because they run the offense through Ramondre, and now, like who mentioned, the only other kind of star was Jacoby Myers, and that's Mac Jones' go-to guy. He's not there. If you watch the last couple games of the Patriots, a lot of these checkdowns, like in the Vikings game and the Bills game, these were specialized to go to Ramondre. He's turning into that big dual threat. I mean, he's good too, and he's hard to bring down. He's hard to tackle. So the positive silver lining here is the fact that there's actually a lot of positive leverage putting him in captain, specifically because there's going to be just a huge disparity when it comes to, the general public wanting to put different pieces in the captain spot, right? They all want to get different. But let's just say only 20 to 25% of the field, even though he's going to be 80% owned, he's in the captain. You can still do a lot of different things because all these different pass catches that are available to us tonight, one of them is going to, obviously outshine someone else. And there's going to be different pieces, and how we can construct that, is really contingent upon who we put up there. You put Hopkins in the captain spot. Yeah, of course, it's going to be less people that have him in the captain spot, but that's also an extra 4,000 salary that you just lost now. And so you're kind of stuck with a little bit, probably different parts of pieces that aren't necessarily as optimal and probably, won't see the field. So it's kind of like thinking like, okay, like, is this worth it? We got to have probably the mindset of Thursday night, right? Las Vegas and the Rams. It's kind of like the same situation tonight. I didn't do the show with them last week, but, I was in Discord during the show and I was talking about no one wants Skoranek, no one wants Jefferson, and, they're getting 15, 17% ownership. Well, these guys were going to be on the field 100% of the time. We knew that. And, for us, how do we get an edge? Well, we add more exposure and create more different lineups to people in those types of situations. And I think the same could be said tonight. I think, Kendrick Bourne's going to get an uptick in being on the field, with Bourne being out with Myers being out. And then, guys like Hunter Henry, right? No one's going to want to roster him, as much as maybe, let's say, Parker and Aguilar, which are great pieces, which is also something that we need to get into discussion a little bit later about how receivers in the slot have really kind of torched this Cardinals offense. So, what's that look like in regards to Aguilar, who, he runs like 33% of the time out of the slot. And if guys like DeAndre Carter are burning this secondary, I mean, there's a lot of upside there for Aguilar as well. But, for me, if we can get positive leverage with Ramondre and the captain, then I don't mind hammering the hell out of him and captain and really just making those bottom pieces a little bit different compared to kind of what, maybe the others are seeing as far as the public is concerned. So, that's kind of where my mindset is. And then, Kyler, is kind of like, how can you really fade him? And Hoop's right. It's because of the legs. When you got a dual threat quarterback, the last thing that you want to do is kind of shy away from him, knowing that the fact that he can run 8 to 10 times and, one, potentially get in the end zone, which is already an automatic 6, but also two, if he's getting 50 to 70 yards rushing, which, he's had some games this year where, he's hit 60, 50, even 100 yards rushing. That's a little bit scary for me, considering the fact that on the other side, you have a guy that's kind of like immobile, a guy that doesn't necessarily have the best of comfort as of late in the pocket. There's injuries on that offensive line as well. And, he's also someone that just hasn't had the upside. I think he's hit 20 fantasy points, and I'm speaking of Mac Jones now, 20 fantasy points in 2 games, I think, this entire season. And for me, it's like, well, what's his true ceiling? I mean, it's not there, right? I predict more of him just, being a little bit of floor. And with Myers out, my thought process is, okay, hammer Ramondre, right? Feed him, let him do everything, try to keep the game close, check it down to him. If guys aren't getting open, what are they going to blitz? Are they going to put a lot of pressure on Mac Jones tonight? That's another thing too. The Cardinals defense is another interesting thing tonight, because Mac Jones does turn it over. And, Cardinals like the blitz. I could see that being something as well, putting them in the lineup. They're not getting much ownership as well. So from the 2 quarterbacks, I would say heavily on Kyler Murray. 55% of the public's going to want to roster him. And, for me, it's hard to say no to him. So, but for Mac Jones, I'm with Hoop. It's hard for me to like Mac Jones so much. And, he might be like the 3rd highest owned guy tonight. If I can get different elsewhere, I already have a nice advantage.
Guys, we are trying to get to 300 likes quickly. We've got 510 watching. Go ahead, hit the like and the subscribe button. Come over and visit us if you're not already a member, like Brandon McNair, our guy. Hey, how about them Giants, B-Mac? At Run Pure Sports, runpuresports.com. Hoop, the running backs here. Any interest in James Conner? Great point made by Cedom, by the way, about the offensive line for the Patriots. 2 offensive tackles are questionable here. Thoughts on the rest of these running backs for you outside of Ramondre?
Yeah. Before that, my guy in the chat, Frank Gasway, goes, "Are y'all doing Granny's workbench play of the day?" they like Grandma's workbench there behind you, JT. Yeah. So that's
I'll tell you what, it's comfortable. The bed is comfortable. I slept in it last night, and I woke up feeling like I was ready to crush. So
it's all you can ask for when you're operating on a bench like that, I suppose. In terms of the other running backs, like James Conner, I mean, much like Ramondre, has entered this like elite type of role where he's getting all the work for the Cardinals. Now, the difference between Ramondre's role and James Conner's role is James Conner is operating with a running quarterback. Well, Ramondre is not. So he loses a little bit of that touchdown equity when they get in the red zone, but 25 carries last week against the Rams, 21 carries, and he's getting a little bit of work in the passing game as well. 3 catches, 2 catches, 3 catches, 5 catches. The price is $10K. That's a big boy price tag. And if you put him in the captain, he's going to have to do something special to pay it off. So I don't know how much I'll have of him in the captain spot, but I'll have a lot of him in the flex for sure. In terms of the other running backs, I'm just not going to mess with anyone else. I mean, these guys are getting all the work at the running back position. The backup for Connor is this Keontae Ingram guy, and his workload is basically non-existent. 2 carries last week. He's not doing anything. Same as Kevin Harris. We have cheap wide receivers to consider this week. I'm going to go cheap at wide receiver with some of those guys. I'm not messing with anyone besides Stevenson and James Conner, and for me, Conner probably going to end up being more of a flex play opposed to a captain type play.
I'll stick with you. It's hard to imagine Connor getting there in captain with the weapons that Arizona has, but in this single game environment, they have leaned on him. He has had a large role since coming back from injury. We'll get into the wide receivers here, Hoop. I mean, Hopkins up there all by himself at 11.6K. Then you have Marquise Brown at 7,600. Devontae Parker, 58. Kendrick Bourne, 54. Aguilar is 5K. And then you've got Dortch, who had a big game last week. Really hard to see him commanding that level of targets again at 2,200 and some dust. Robbie Anderson at 1.8. AJ Green is 5,200. And then maybe not dust, but not as involved in this offense. It would take something very wild, I think, to see a lot of involvement here from Tyquan Thornton at 1.4. Obviously, the two big guys are Hopkins and Brown on the Arizona side. As we talked about, you get a massive discount, a massive savings by going with Brown over Hopkins. Someone in chat posted this. I remember this, that the history of Hopkins against the Patriots is not very good. They've sought to lock him down.
Yeah.
And then on the Patriots side, it's kind of guessing game here, right? What do you think? What do you make of this puzzle at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, so I pulled up a few different projection sites as we were talking on DeAndre Hopkins, and a lot of places have him low. I mean, they have him, 15, 16 fantasy point range, and I'm guessing it's because of the history against the Patriots. So maybe, we do reconsider not play him in captain, but for flex, for sure, I'm going to have a decent bit of him in the flex, maybe not a captain play. Maybe just go to Marquise Brown and play him in some captain, which I am interested in because it is a good price tag, 7.6K. He is getting a ton of work, like we talked about, similar work to DeAndre Hopkins. The targets 8, 9, 10, 11. Some of this goes on to earlier on in the season, but he hasn't had a game with, since week 1 with less than 5 receptions. So it's a nice floor with that upside, which we like. So those are definitely the two top guys in terms of projections. Get a little boost, obviously, with Rondale Moore ruled out. And then Greg Dortch is, because of Moore being out, is going to be probably the most popular value play on this slate. He's only 2.2K. Has a very solid projection, and he's coming off just like a monster performance. So you pull up what he did last week. It was 10 targets, 9 receptions, 103 yards. His style of play fits well with Kyler, who sucks at quarterback and is going to look in these little intermediate areas and kind of just dump it off. And we saw it last week. So there is big time upside. I'm going to run some teams, and I would not be opposed to maybe playing some Dortch. Like if you play Dortch in the captain, I'm definitely playing him in the flex, but I'm saying if you play Dortch in the captain, you're left with 9.3K per spot. I mean, you can get Stevenson, you could get both quarterbacks and another spend. So, going cheap at captain, you can get a lot of these big name guys. So I might potentially play some of him. I would cap it for sure. I wouldn't play more than 5% or something in the captain. But it would just be, again, when I put the projections in and run it, if it's giving me some Dortch, I would not X that out, but I would cap it though as well. The interesting play on this slate is definitely these Patriots wide receivers with Jacoby Myers out. And one thing to keep in mind, there's not a lot to go around for Patriots wide receivers, even when Jacoby Myers was in there. It was not like he's having a monster season. So he is out. I'd be a little bit cautious. Maybe if you're someone that sets rules, I don't really set a ton of firm rules on my teams, but I don't want I don't want a majority of my teams to have multiple Patriots wide receivers in there. So if I'm getting a lot of that, I would set a rule to maybe just one of these guys, because I just don't think there's enough to go around. I mean, you got a guy in Ramondre Stevenson who's undoubtedly going to get 7 or 8 targets. So that takes away from these wide receivers. I like Hunter Henry a little bit too. They have 2 tight ends, Jonnu Smith. So I don't want teams with multiple Patriots wide receivers. For me, it would be like an eye check situation. Once I run my teams, my 150, I'll go through and see, am I getting a lot of that? If so, I would make some rules. If it's kind of sparse where I'm getting those types of lineups, then I wouldn't set a rule. I just let it go. But you definitely don't want a majority of your teams to have multiple Patriots wide receivers. Nelson Aguilar and Devontae Parker appear to be like the 1-1-2. 5K for Aguilar, 5.8K for Parker. I mean, they're just very similar plays. I mean, I think they're basically the same. You got Kendrick Bourne, 5.4K, probably a little bit worse of a play. But his projection also is a little bit low than those guys. And then Taquan Thornton at 1.4K, I think is a solid play, another really good value. That's why I don't want to mess around with those other random running backs. I'll play guys like him. I'll play guys like Dortch. But that's where I'm going to draw the line at wide receiver. You're not really going to play AJ Brown. I have a full divorce with Robbie Anderson after last season. I just can't even look at the name anymore. But, some of these plays are very, very solid. But again, I guess the main point here for me would be I want to really monitor my teams with these Patriots wide receivers and make sure I'm not getting a lot of teams that have more than one of these guys.
Irreconcilable differences between Hoop and Robbie Anderson is something that you hate to see. Guys, go ahead, hit that like button. We're trying to get to 300. We have 600 watching. Should be able to get there pretty easily. And hit the big red button that lets you subscribe to all of the Run Pure Sports Millie Maker farm content. C-Dome, thoughts on the wide receiver position here? I think Hoop broke it down nicely. And what's your opinion on how many pass catchers, specifically wide receivers from the New England side, you think you want to have in the same lineup this evening?
It's difficult because if I have Ramondre, I don't want to have so much exposure to one side if I don't believe that, Mac really has that ability to have a ceiling type game, even though, this is a secondary that we do want to attack. But I will say, I think Hunter Henry's in a smash spot tonight. And he's not getting much ownership. You have to understand that this team cannot guard the tight end. I mean, this is going back to Jawan Johnson earlier this year on a showdown slate. But I mean, if you look at recent games, Kittle ate them up, Higbee ate them up, even freaking Noah Fant ate them up as well. So, for me, I do not mind going to a guy that, he's going to be on the field. I think he played if I'm not mistaken, 87% of the snaps last week. And the reason why I like Hunter Henry even more this week as a pass catcher for New England is because Jacoby's out. Okay. And why not attack them where that, they're just not where they can't defend the pass. And that's the tight end position. Another thing about these guys is Higbee runs routes out of the slot. Kittle runs routes out of the slot. Well, guess what? So does Hunter Henry. 77 routes run this year out of the slot. So I really want to attack that position. So I don't mind the combination of Ramondre and Hunter Henry. I think Hunter Henry's, the more that I look deep into this, he's the best pass catcher available, I think, in a game script kind of format that I'm thinking tonight in this matchup. So I think being overexposed to Hunter Henry is optimal. I think it's a kind of an interesting approach, especially because right now at this present moment, the field doesn't like him as much, which is kind of interesting. So then we look at the other guys. Okay, Devontae, big guy, he's going to play on the outside. Is he now the guy that Mac goes to more, in this pass catching scheme? I don't know, because then you have Nelson Aguilar, who, seems to be, a guy that Mac kind of likes at times and then just kind of shies away from him. Is Kendrick Bourne the answer? I agree with Coop. I don't think you want to have so many pass catchers in one side from the Patriots side. And I think that's solely based on the fact that I'd rather have multiple pass catchers on the Arizona side, right? It's hard for me to not have Marquise Brown and this Hopkins talk of, Belichick shut him down in the past. It's like, man, I mean, is that really going to happen? Look at what this guy's done. I mean, he's getting double-digit targets, and I mean, he's just exceeding expectations every game. And you mean to tell me that all of a sudden that's going to come to a screeching halt now? I don't necessarily know that. I mean, Murray has his go-to guys, and, with Marquise Brown on the field as well, this makes it difficult for defenses because of the way that these two guys are, right? They both have speed. They both run great routes. It's like this can really get disruptive in this secondary for New England. So even though the defense, has been good at times for New England, they've shown vulnerability in some games this year to the passing game. So does that mean that I want to kind of say no to James Conner? And that's where it's hard. And that's why I like the fact that, if you're running 20 or 150 lineups, you can switch things up, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to run with the pass catchers in a few lineups and say no to Conner, but then I'll have Conner in some lineups and then a pass catcher as well. And it's like, okay, what does that look like in regards to New England on the other side? And that's where we talk about not having multiple pass catchers, because it just doesn't feel like that's the optimal spot. And I think if you've watched the last few games, like that just doesn't happen in this type of offense, right? Especially with Myers out now. Mac Jones is not the greatest. Ramondre is too cheap. It's like, okay, plug in Ramondre, and then which other guy do you want? And I think, of those guys, Hunter Henry. And I think the Greg Dortch talk is interesting, only because this morning, before I look, like I always look at everything, as far as just like looking at, the price points and then I go into deeper data. But Greg Dortch didn't play last week. And it's weird because, you would think that based on the game prior, Rondale Moore got hurt, 49ers, that was a showdown game. Rondale Moore got hurt like the first or second play. Dortch comes in, has a fucking amazing game. Sorry for my language. Has an incredible game. And then next week doesn't play, right? But they love to play AJ Green. Played like 50% of the snaps last week. Robbie Anderson, 40% of the snaps last week. Where's the love for Greg Dortch? We know that what he's capable of, especially from earlier in this season. Does that change tonight? Like, does he get back on the field? And then who does that take a hit to, right? So I don't know. And I thought based on those numbers alone that Greg Dortch wouldn't get so much projected ownership, but he's getting like 20%. And so for me, I have to make that decision if do I really want to take that gamble? If he was nothing, AJ Green is 2% tonight. He's literally 2% projected ownership, but he's going to be on the field potentially 40, 50% of the plays, given kind of what he's done all season. Is he going to score crazy points? No, but is he a big target that he can look to in the red zone? And then, he catches 2 balls for 20 yards and a touchdown. He now is all of a sudden in contention to be in the optimal spot, and he's only 2% owned. So that's another thing to take in consideration. It's like, well, if Dortch didn't play last week, like what does that look like now, considering that they're fully healthy at the wide receiver position? And I think that's the only thing that scares me, because if he was 2% owned tonight, I would like him a lot more, knowing that I could take a gamble on him. But 20%, shit, let 20% of the field suffer, because he might not even see the field, let alone play any type of role in this offense. So that's my thoughts as far as the pass catchers.
Yeah, first of all, please don't curse. JSU is going to send you a note. You know how JSU feels about the curse words. It's just terrible. I mean, fuck. Hoop, we'll bring it over to you. We're trying to get to 300 likes, 252 here. We talked about the tight end position. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, everybody's darling Trey McBride just hasn't broken out. But similar to the Cardinals, the Patriots very, very bad against defending the tight end position, maybe because they focus on some of these other weapons. We saw big games against them from Tyler Conklin. Of the Jets, Hawkinson had a decent game. Thoughts here on Hunter Henry? Thoughts, as some people are bringing up in the chat, could Jonnu Smith get more work randomly? And thoughts on Trey McBride. And then Eli Mitchell is in chat. Eli, I really hope you're doing well. Can't wait to see you next season when you get, once again, the chance to lead San Francisco's backfield with Christian McCaffrey as your backup.
In terms of the tight end plays, yeah, I think it's a really good spot for Hunter Henry. It seems like we've been talking about the Cardinals defense being bad against tight ends for ever. Ever since I started doing this, it seems like the Cardinals D has just been bad against tight ends, regardless of who the coach is. But Henry's been solid. Had that big game on Thanksgiving. He's getting more work than Jonnu, so I think he's a really strong play. 5.6K. I mean, he's kind of priced in there with those Patriots wide receivers. I probably prefer him over the Patriots wide receivers. I got to sneeze. Not coming. It's not coming up.
I was already to say bless you and tell you not to get it on your good shirt.
So,
I know.
Salute.
Fuck, man. Yeah, if I would have shot out a bunch of snot on this new shirt here, I don't know what I would do. I'd have to maybe go topless here for the show. All the ladies in the chat would like it, I'm sure.
There you go.
Hunter Henry, I prefer him over the pass catchers for the Patriots. He's priced right there with them. Jonnu Smith, not as thrilled with him. I mean, the workload has been declining. Really hasn't done anything in a while. Not going to exclude him from my player pool, but definitely not going to promote him and make sure I get a certain amount. And then Trey McBride, everyone thought when Ertz went down, all right, it's going to be McBride time. And he's literally done absolutely nothing since Ertz went out. Best game, 5 fantasy points. But the price is cheap, 2.4K. And we know what tight ends have done on these showdown slates historically. So I will include him, definitely not like a all-in type player or anything, but I'll have him in my player pool for sure. But Hunter Henry seems like a really solid play here. And my main point with him, prefer him over those other Patriots wide receivers.
We're 28 away from 300, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the like for Run Pure Sports. And you know what they say? They say members never win. It's an old joke. I don't think it's even a joke anymore with how much our members have been crushing. Way too loud. Shout out. Congrats to him on his Millie Maker takedown yesterday. Hoop, we've talked about quarterback, running back, wide receiver, talked about tight end. We're going to get to defenses and kickers, but out of all this, we have the Ramondre issue. Do we make him our captain? You talked about playing Dortch as captain in a couple of lineups. What about playing Nelson Aguilar at captain? What about some of these other receivers, Marquise Brown, that allow you to get one of the quarterbacks, Ramondre, and then really go anywhere else and not have to worry about, is it Trey McBride? Is it going to be Tyquan Thornton? Or is that a lineup structure that you want because you think there's a chance, and there is a chance in this game, legitimate chance for one of those guys to absolutely go bonkers and break the slate.
Yeah.
Just the makeup of the two teams. Where are you leaning at captain right now?
Yeah, so when I look at captain, I mean, what I typically do at captain, if you listen to those daily assist videos, I like to narrow it down. I like to really narrow it down. I know a lot of optimizers, they'll give you just like a ton of, even on SaberSim. If you go in there and just run it on SaberSim, they're going to give you like, I don't know, 15 to 20 different captains. I actually, disagree with that. I love the SaberSim product for sure, but I just don't think playing that many guys in captain is the right move. So I always narrow my player pool. Tonight, it's probably looking like 4 to 5 guys in the captain, and it could change. I haven't built teams yet, but the guys I look at tonight as captains, definitely Stevenson. I know he's going to be popular, but it's just a misprice. I mean, it's he could even have like a 20 fantasy point game, which I think is not his floor. Like, to me, like his realistic floor tonight is probably like 16 or 17. I think even if he got 20 because of this price tag, he has a chance to be the guy in captain. So definitely going to play him. I'm going to play some Kyler. I'm going to play some Marquise Brown. I like that Marquise Brown call in the captain. If we want to buy into this narrative that Belichick is going to, slow down DeAndre Hopkins, the next guy that benefits the most is definitely Marquise Brown. I mean, he's getting a lot of targets, so I like him in the captain. And then Nick Folk. I think you can play Folk. Me and Big T have been doing these showdown shows for a while. And one thing we always would do when we talk about kickers is pull up the game log. And that's obviously not the best strategy for all positions, but kicker game logs can tell you a lot. It can tell you, is a team willing to kick field goals? There are teams that, just really don't kick that many field goals. When you look at Nick Folk's game log here, he's got a 10, an 18, 5 field goals there, a 21 fantasy point game against the Jets, a 17 fantasy point game against the Colts, and then a 15 fantasy point game against the Vikings. So he has 4 games this season with 15 or more fantasy points. If he does that tonight, he's going to have a chance to be the optimal captain. So I do like Folk, and then not opposed to some Dortch at 2.2K because it's going to get you totally different. And it's not a lock that I'm going to do that. Like I said, if I build teams and I'm getting some Dortch, I'd be okay with it, but I would cap it. So I think that's like 5 guys that I'm kind of looking at here for captain tonight.
Yeah, Bill Belichick, of course, a very, very old school coach, not subscribing to these new theories like going for it on 4th down when you're in the middle of the field. C-Dome, thoughts on captains, the guys that Hoop mentioned, and then anybody else maybe taking a chance on any of these New England wide receivers, see if maybe they somehow get into the mix more than others.
Yeah, I think, starting off first, I think Ramondre in captain, if you have overexposure, you'll definitely have leverage in that situation. And then I do like the Marquise Brown call, because given the fact of what we've seen all year, and I know that, Hopkins didn't play, quite a bit to start out the season, but Marquise Brown, I mean, given the fact of the volume that can go to him tonight, and if just so in a world where they put so much emphasis on shutting down Hopkins and it just funnels now to Marquise Brown, this is also another high leverage play and can put yourself in a good spot in a large GBP tournament as well, as far as the captain is concerned. I don't mind Kyler in the captain as well. And then it gets a little bit different, right? If we wanted to go down and try to be a little bit different, could this be a ceiling type game for Hunter Henry? Absolutely. This is a game where they struggle against tight ends. I don't mind it whatsoever. I think one guy in that mid-range that we're talking about, like if we wanted to be different, I think Nelson Aguilar is probably someone we should really take into consideration, right? He definitely has speed. We've seen kind of the upside a couple times this year of what he's capable of doing. Now we know that Jacoby Myers is not going to be a part of this offense tonight. Who's the guy that steps up? Can it be him? They struggle against guys in the slot, man. And this guy can definitely burn some people in the slot. So if he gets it going and the upside's there and he burns one also for a big one, you put yourself in a really interesting spot as far as, in contention at the end of the night. So I don't mind him whatsoever. The kickers, I think, is always something to flirt with. We've seen it happen time after time where, they could easily, be put into the captain. You could have a powerful lineup and then it could ship. It's happened this year. We saw BigT do it earlier this year as well. So I don't mind that call whatsoever when it comes to the captains. But I think I'm going to probably keep it, in that range and not get too crazy. So I'm probably on the same side of Hoop, like maybe 4 to 5 guys, and then just kind of build out from there.
A little under 10 minutes to get just 9 more likes to get us to 300, 648 watching. Need to get to that 300 number. Hoop, kick it over to you here. Thoughts here on you talked about Nick Folk, and then the defenses. New England, 4,400. Arizona, 3,800. Mac Jones, second-year quarterback on the road. Thoughts here on playing the defenses and any interest in the Arizona kicker?
I'll start with kickers because it's easy for me. I mean, I virtually play the kickers way over the field almost every single slate. Tonight will be no different. I just said I'm going to play Folk in the captain. That means I'm going to love them in the flex as well. Matt Prater has always been a solid kicker, so I think there's no worries here at kicker. Load them up, and that's my plan. Now, defenses, I feel like Showdown, you're either a defense guy or you're not, and I just have not been a defense guy. I typically don't play defenses. Look at it yesterday on the main slate. Everyone said, Cowboys defense just slam dunk. They're 3.8K, but I mean, how do they miss against the Texans? Like, is it possible for them to bust against the Texans? Let's just load them up and play them. Just such an unpredictable, volatile spot. I do the playbook for the main slate and I always list 4 or 5, and I'm like, just play whoever you want at defense. The volatility there is just, so massive. I mean, people will say, oh, well, I have this model for defense and, I can predict. Like, good for you then. You should make a shit ton of money. I'm not smart enough to figure that stuff out. I typically don't play defenses, and I don't play them over the field, let me say. I don't play them, they're not a priority play for me ever. Be the same thing tonight. 4-4 for the Patriots, 3-8 for the Cardinals. I'll put in what I feel is a good projection on them and let it run. I talked about it with Mac Jones. I'll put in a projection. If I get 15% Mac Jones, that's what I'm playing. If I get 40, that's what I'm playing. I'll do that with the defenses tonight. If I get none of the defenses, I'll just roll with no defense. If I get 10% of one and 5 of the other, I'll roll with that. If I get 20 of each, I'll roll with that. I'm just not manually adjusting for defenses. I just I don't like it. And like I said in the opening, I just feel like you're either someone that has a strong lean and plays the defenses, or you don't. I'm someone that just typically does not play the defenses at a high clip, and honestly, it's worked out well. So I'm going to continue on with that strategy, but love the kickers for sure.
Fair enough. And first of all, thank you, everyone. We got to the 300 likes. And Hoop, Grand Attraction Inc. looks like he's a newer viewer. We welcome you, Grand Attraction Inc. It's a fantastic name. We thank you for watching us. And he's got a question that he's repeated about 638 times, And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you your thoughts on this game on FanDuel. If you're playing over there, you're still looking at Stevenson, the pricing a little bit different over there, of course, the format a little bit different. Your thoughts, maybe just really quickly, top captains, best flex plays.
Yeah.
Still interested in Nick Folk and the Arizona kicker on FanDuel.
Yeah. So what I do on the daily assist videos, I'll just circle through to FanDuel, because a lot of what you talk about on DraftKings, you can apply to FanDuel for the most part. The one thing you're always going to have to remember when you're playing on FanDuel, it's not full PPR. So the touchdown scorers are way more important. They're way more valuable. So quarterbacks have a huge advantage on FanDuel because of the non-PPR nature. So Kyler Murray, I think it's a big boost over on FanDuel in the MVP spot. If he scores on the ground, it's going to be hard for someone to catch him. So he immediately gets a big boost. The other thing I like to look at is, pricing differences. Is somebody mispriced over there or too cheap? And one guy I would say is James Conner, because he's getting all the work. Touchdowns are super important over there. He's only 12.5K. So I like him on DK at 10K, but I really like him 12.5 on FanDuel. Ramondre Stevenson's price is just as bad over there as it is on DK at 14,000. That's a very, very cheap price tag for him. Devontae Parker, 7.5K. The Patriots wide receivers are better values over on FanDuel. Aguilar, 8K. Devontae Parker, 7.5K. Hunter Henry, 7.5K. Kendrick Bourne, 5.5. That's only $500 above the minimum. He's a really good play over there. Dortch at 7K, I think it's a fine play. So you have a lot of really, really cheap plays on FanDuel. So the one thing I would say, if you're going on FanDuel, be comfortable leaving some money on the table. It's a great way to get different tonight because we have a lot of cheap plays. So that's kind of my quick overview on FanDuel tonight.
Fantastic. Grand Attraction Inc. Thank you very much for the love. It's much appreciated. I hope you enjoyed Hoop's answer. Rendon, we'll get to you here. We're going to wrap this up. We got a question as well, wondering if James Conner can outscore Mac Jones this evening, and then your final thoughts here and a bold call for the game tonight.
Yeah, I think James Conner, first off, to answer that question, can definitely outscore Mac Jones. I want to emphasize on this real quick. You're looking at an Arizona Cardinals defense, okay? They're second in the league with 169 blitzes, all right? They blitzed 36% of the time. They've knocked down the quarterback the second most times in the league this year. And that's quarterback knockdowns, like they hit the quarterback after the throw. Let me tell you why this is important tonight. One, because the health of the offensive line when it comes to the New England Patriots. But when you really look at Mac Jones, he's been sacked 20 times in his last 5 games, okay? 20 times. That's unreal. He's in trouble tonight. I just don't think given how this Arizona defense plays, he's not going to have a lot of time in this pocket. And so I think, look at the people that could benefit the most from that when it comes to that scenario. But also on the flip side, I really think the Arizona Cardinals defense is an optimal play. I truly do. They're great at, putting quarterbacks in positions to turn over the ball. We've seen it before, especially with them on primetime football and showdown slates. And given that Saints game as well, where Dalton, gave them 2 picks to the house. I think tonight, in one of my bold calls is I think we see that Arizona Cardinals defense that is projected to be 12 to 13% on right now could be in that outright shipper. If it is solo ship tonight, I just don't think a lot of people want to play the defenses, especially the Arizona side. But given the metrics and knowing kind of what they can do defensively to Mac Jones and seeing kind of how Mac Jones just kind of crumbles, and he's very capable of turning over the ball, I just don't see the optimal side of Mac Jones tonight given this situation. And I really like the Arizona Cardinals defense. So we talked about kickers. I don't mind Nick Folk whatsoever, especially with the volume. And, they like to kick field goals. He's had some double-digit scores this year. So, I don't mind the kickers whatsoever. But when it comes to the defenses, I truly think, you need to really look into the Arizona Cardinals defense tonight. They're 3,800. Not many people want to roster them. It gives you a huge edge on the field.
When I looked at the pricing for the Cardinals defense, I do think it's a little bit too low for a showdown matchup. And just to dip our toes into the betting market here, Randone, really quickly, because Tyler from the Run Pure Bet side was in chat. Of course, spread is out, cannibalizing a live human right now. But in terms of this line with New England favored by 2.5, you have to think that this line is wrong then, and it makes sense to bet Arizona.
Yeah, I like Arizona tonight, actually. I just think they have more firepower on offense. And I think, you have to look at the matchup. I think there's just a huge disparity between the upside with Kyle Murray and then just kind of who Mac Jones is as just like a regular NFL quarterback. There's really nothing exciting. I think it's Ramondre or nothing when it comes to this offense currently. If you watch the Bills game last week too, like they just were inept with the passing game and moving the ball. I mean, if it wasn't for Ramondre, they probably get shut out there. And two, they're just not a good offense like whatsoever. And, outside of that Thanksgiving game, I'm really not going to take anything else into consideration, but I do like the Cardinals when it comes to the betting aspect as well tonight. I think they do handle New England here. And I think it's just a disparity when it comes to the offensive weapons and firepower that they have compared to New England.
That is definitely a bold call. Hoop, final thoughts here, and then one bold call. I don't know if it can be quite as bold as taking the Arizona defense, but I like it. I like the thought process there. Where do you stand before we get out of here?
Oh man, so definitely it's an interesting slate. Like I said, the thing that I'm going to be careful about when building teams is with these Patriots wide receivers. I prefer Henry. My bold call is going to be that we see the return of captain kicker shipping it for us. Going to go Nick Folk in the captain as the optimal captain on the slate.
Fantastic. So very interesting. Two different viewpoints here. One, highlight the Arizona defense. The other, Nick Folk and kicker. But it's a good point because if they're able to move the ball with Ramondre, they've had problems in the red zone, and maybe it's going to be a night where Nick Folk is going to have to keep the Patriots in contention. That's it, guys. Thank you for watching. Go ahead and head on over to runpuresports.com. Hoop is going to have a core up. We're going to have, I think tonight, we're still going to have Big T's player pool and his core up. Randone, C-Dome has been doing a great job later in the afternoon. He's posting leverage plays. He's posting his player pool. He's been putting cores up for the people, for C-Dome, for Hoop. I'm JT Hayes. Have a good Monday. Good luck in your contest, guys. Simon, get us out of here.